Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. I'm Sunanda Jaiseelan. If it matters to you, it matters to us, and we cover it here on the show. Today, we're kick-starting our series that we're calling the Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall. Essentially, over the course of the season, we're traveling to 12 cities across the country, meeting face-to-face with entrepreneurs in each city that we go to, bringing a panel of experts and discussing issues and topics that are top of mind for entrepreneurs in each of these cities. Today, we're kickstarting with Ahmedabad, talking about entrepreneurship and resilience. What makes Ahmedabad the hub of entrepreneurship and resilience? Here's a slice of that panel.
Thank you once again to our panelists for taking the time to join us. Let me very quickly start with a conversation and a comment and a question really. And Maulik, if I could come to you first. There's so much that's been happening over the past year and a half, 2020-21, but perhaps the one thread that has been a ray of hope, if I can call it that, has been the power of technology that has helped businesses stay afloat to some extent. And that definitely has been really something which has been at the core, of course, of all the work that NASSCOM does, wearing all the multiple hats that you do. But if you could, comment from a NASSCOM perspective, there has been technology which has managed to help small businesses stay afloat, thanks to a lot of training also that organizations like NASSCOM does when it comes to digital literacy. Over this past year and a half, could you talk to us about the efforts that you have done when it comes to small businesses and ensuring that you're educating them what digital literacy means and technology really means for them?
Thank you, friends, and it's a pleasure to be here. You have asked a very loaded question, okay? But, there are several things which have been done, and of course, it's not everything done yet. As we went into pandemic, unfortunately, with the given circumstances, all our businesses had to still continue in one or the other way, especially the small, medium enterprises. I primarily come from technology background, right? So I may say from that perspective, but to an extent what I say will also apply to non-tech small, medium businesses or other businesses also. When we started with crisis management in pandemic, right? Suddenly things were in lockdown and so on. So if I may give an example, until this unfortunate pandemic situation, every time there was an epidemic or something like this or a natural disaster, we used to handle it in a very different form. For example, we used to kind of open up our schools, community centers, temples, religious places to operate, and so to the communities, we would actually gather there. We would actually run camps over there, right? If you think this time around, the approach was completely opposite. Decentralized, stay where you are, don't gather anywhere. Now that applies not just to individuals alone, like us, but including businesses, which means you be where you are and still operate where you can and how much you can, right? And that's where actually technology has come to a great help, right? Especially talking about from the tech perspective, I think working from home or working from anywhere, which started as in crisis management to now to an extent where possible it has become a strategic initiative, right? A lot of learning as a result of that. A lot of initiatives which has come into play in terms of how do we really engage people, how do we really work together, how do we collaborate with them no matter where they are. All these things have gone into our understanding and our learning, including self-learning, a lot of skilling that has come into play. And importantly, digital literacy, which means not just for our workforce, but us as entrepreneurs and business leaders as well, to remain on top of our business from where we are, including some dashboards, very elementary things which can be done. And in my opinion, a lot have been done, but still a lot is to be done when it comes to making sure that our businesses are running to the extent that we can really do.
Sure. Very important points raised. Maulik, I'll come back to some of those, but Ankit, you also wear many hats. I would like for you to wear your FICCI hat. And I think what is most crucial at this point is to really talk about how organizations, whether it is FICCI or NASSCOM, have come to the aid of businesses which have been impacted during the pandemic. FICCI as an organization, and I was just looking at some numbers, report showing nearly 17%, this is, I have figures as of 2019, has been the contribution from the state as far as exports are concerned. Without getting into numbers, could you just talk about your member organizations and committee, organizations and companies which have perhaps been hit by the pandemic, and how have they managed to stay afloat? What have they done? Any insights you can give us?
When we have been seeing the corporates and FICCI as an organization, it has been going hands in hands, and the major challenges during COVID and pre-COVID, we are taking the last 3 to 4 year scenario. What we have seen is managing the cash flow, which has been the biggest challenge of the industry considering SMEs, MSMEs, as well as the large corporates. Secondly, post-COVID, getting into the digitalization, because small SMEs and MSMEs are not that equipped, not financially that strong, who can support that kind of a digital system for their organization as well as the employees. Another thing, when we are looking for the large corporates and the leaders of tomorrow, which I am seeing, and I hope that all of you sitting here are the future leaders of our country, then we have to look from the different angle. So every organization has some leader who is more capable, who has the vision to come out of those challenges during these COVID times. More when we talk about the routine issues of the institutes like FICCI as well as the corporates, we have seen that many a times there has been sudden development on certain things which are not expected. Dealing with some situations, managing the employees, retaining the employees, production issues, manufacturing issues. So, altogether keep it in a loop. We can strategize it, and I'll be talking further more post the other panels.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll come back to you on some of those points that you've raised, Ankit, but I want to give Ranu the chance to give her opening comments as well. You are, the entrepreneur that you're talking about, right? From your peer community, as yourself, I think the people who've been the hardest hit are the entrepreneurs of India. How have you been able to manage in this past year and a half? What have businesses done to survive? Because it just came down to a question of survival, if I'm not mistaken.
I represent a startup here, and not just any startup, one of the worst hit businesses, which is, though seemingly glamorous, is fashion and retail sector. So, and for us, because we had started in 2017, and this was something like, even Maulik mentioned, there used to be pandemics, there used to be other things that we all have coped with, seen in our lifetime. But this is something which was, no one has ever anticipated, like that in these times we will go through something like this. There was demonetization, there was GST that had hit us. That time also it took a while for the startups, especially retail and the fashion sector, the small businesses, because they were still struggling to figure out. But COVID, it was another story after all. We had to all cope up. And again, when we are talking about the digital support, so startups, it's just not about the availability, it's about the affordability for most of us. And most of us who have started young, in its own definition, the startups. So yes, coping through it was the most difficult times. Not just that, sitting with our teams we used to get those calls. I used to get those calls that, ma'am, are we going to survive this? Would we sail through this? Are the salaries going to come on time? So yes, it was a very, I mean, it is a very small, modest startup for me, but yes, as a decision, we didn't cut any salaries. We did retain all of our employees. In terms of if you talk about the coping strategy, the survival strategy, yes, that had to change. That was adapting.
Sure.
We had to adapt. So if I talk about my particular scenario, we we are an e-commerce business. It's a website, and in 2019 we had started with a consultancy also, wherein we were mostly engaging with our own small fashion startups or retail startups.
Sure.
So when 2020 we were in this unique scenario, so what we started was we started engaging these people who were our own brands, especially not just the smaller brands, even the bigger brands. Bombay, the stylists, the photographers, the entire industry. So we tried to engage them. We did a lot of online events or online talks, online kind of support groups wherein these people can work together.
Sure.
So that in turn was a survival strategy for us.
Sure, that's interesting, and I would like to discuss a little more about crisis management for small businesses, and also as leaders and CEOs and founders of larger businesses, what your crisis management strategy looked like. But coming back to finance, the most important thing, of course, for any entrepreneur.
I'm going to take a quick break. Back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here, Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall, bring you a slice of a panel that we did with an audience live in Ahmedabad earlier. Take a listen.
The government announced the emergency credit guarantee scheme. The extension also happened of that. You have, of course, collateral-free loans that the central government provides. Despite all of those measures, financially, businesses have taken a huge hit. Could you talk to us about perhaps for a business that is struggling to raise funds, given the scenario that we are already, NPAs have been quite badly hit over the past couple of years, and on top of that now you've added COVID, how have businesses survived? And your advice as people running your own businesses about how an entrepreneur should be managing their money, how they should be allocating money perhaps to different buckets, because no one, of course, was prepared for the pandemic, but at the same time as an entrepreneur, you have to ensure that you perhaps have that little bit of a buffer to carry you through the tough times. Open to all three of you. Do you want to take that first?
Firstly, I would say that expense and the funding, before both it comes saving and cutting down of the routine expenses. So when all the doors are closed, for the MSMEs, a lot of schemes, a lot of funding has been given by government, but the challenge what we have been getting from the MSME sectors is that they are not able to get the fundings easily from the banks. In spite of having the collateral, the request, the all the things they have put in to the banks have been denied. The processes are not that easy. So for those people, though having a lot of incentives and everything, it becomes very critical to continue their business at the same pace. At that point of time, they should focus on some kind of an private equities, which are very easily, very widely, the concept is getting evolved. With this, they are getting chance to increase their business, by private equity players coming in, the exposure of theirs and the new ideas of the business are evolved. Managing the business with the expense view, they can also consider comparing their businesses in a way that a lot of MSMEs are these days going into exports. Considering the current exports of the country, we are just 2% of the global trends. So during the exports, there is always a facility of getting some of the payments in advance. Also, there are a lot of other benefits in the MSME sectors, seeing the cooperative sector helping those industries at given then point of time.
Sure. I would like for you to respond to Ankeet, Maulik. Is it as easy for small businesses to be able to access, say for instance, private equity funding? What has, as part of NASSCOM, what has been the experience of some of your member companies when it comes to accessing finance? And also, if someone is looking at tapping the export markets like Ankeet has suggested, what should they perhaps be looking at?
Well, there are, of course, Ankeet did mention and briefed about some ways there. If you have been good profitable business and if you have good products or services to offer, there have been absolutely great opportunities around for you to raise private equity. Okay, what they would normally look at is further potential that's left in the business, right? Which means you may be cash strapped today, but what's the potential overall? What's your capabilities are? What's the team like? At least the entrepreneur and their team A who are working along. I think those are the key factors and focus areas which any private equity or investor would actually look at. And then I'll give an example, right? I wouldn't name, but a small medium business, a non-tech business, right? Having understood that what the challenges are, now how do you really cut and where? That was very important. So sometimes you would possibly won't want to cut down on your clients, right? But you may want to cut down on clients who are not paying you well or on time. So there are tough decisions which are to be made, right? And those tough decisions have to be made and will have to be made. How you are really getting on those tough decisions and how you have streamlined as a result of that is also what private equity investors or they would also look at, right? Because it's you ultimately, or whoever runs that business or owns that business possibly know the basics of that, right? So I think to come from that business owner or business leader is absolutely important.
Sure. And let's come back to the theme for today's panel discussion, which is Ahmedabad, the hub of entrepreneurship and resilience. And I want to talk also about the state of Gujarat, which of course is known for its entrepreneurial spirit, but what makes it such an ideal place for entrepreneurs like yourselves to do business here? Gujarat has emerged as the hub for startups and small businesses and as one of the forerunners when it comes to any of the states here in the country. It sees some of the most innovative entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. Also, in terms of ease of doing business, it ranks among the top states, in the top 5. So Gujarat is an ideal place to do business, but from a personal perspective maybe, and Ranu, if I could start with you, personally for you as a young entrepreneur, as a woman entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur based in the state and in the city, one or two of the advantages that have worked in your favor that you could talk to us about.
Okay, so interestingly to start with, I belong to a family from North. We are not originally from Gujarat, so it's a classic case of a business family migrated to Gujarat. That answers your question to start with. For, yes, the ease of business as we call it. So, yes, that was primarily for a family business. So if I talk about me personally, when I started here, I come from banking industry. I was working in Delhi as part of wealth team with DBS. So when I came to Ahmedabad, my first thought was like, where to get started, what to do. So yes, few things come naturally to us coming from a business family. So yes, I was looking at the opportunities. But when I met most of the women here, there is a clear-cut difference, which is, I'm sure it has to do a lot with the whole Gujarat business mindset as a whole, and also the ease of few of the things which come naturally, and otherwise also the support system which works here. So there were so many people, not just just small businesses started by women, initiated by women, and there were a whole lot of these women who were working from home. So I think that motivated me enough to start with something of my own. It kind of answers what you're talking about.
Thank you so much for that. It's been a very engaging conversation with our panelists.
That's all we could manage to pack into this panel. If you want to know where we're headed to next, well, all of that information is on our website. For tonight, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. I'm Sunanda Jaiseelan. If it matters to you, it matters to us, and we cover it here on the show. Today, we're kick-starting our series that we're calling the Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall. Essentially, over the course of the season, we're traveling to 12 cities across the country, meeting face-to-face with entrepreneurs in each city that we go to, bringing a panel of experts and discussing issues and topics that are top of mind for entrepreneurs in each of these cities. Today, we're kickstarting with Ahmedabad, talking about entrepreneurship and resilience. What makes Ahmedabad the hub of entrepreneurship and resilience? Here's a slice of that panel.
You're someone who runs your own business, of course, and also you wear the NASSCOM hat. Both pros and cons, maybe one or two, both on either side, that you think for an entrepreneur who's based here in the state is true for.
The basic essence of entrepreneurship is actually really taking right moves, and not necessarily it may be right all the time, but at least intent and risk ability to do so, which is there abundance in the state here. But it just on its own cannot really thrive, right? So you need the right ecosystem to flourish and to get seeded. Ecosystem really here presents that. Talking about tech sector especially, and also for non-tech businesses, it's not just one single cluster or a place or location that we have in the state. We're talking about several clusters, and each and every cluster presents its own strength. Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar, you can take one. Baroda, you can take second. You can take Surat and Rajkot, right? Each cluster have their own strength, right? And I'm so happy to be here in the state, because for a tech business, and these are the times very challenging, but also have come with a lot of opportunities to be able to kind of intervene, to be able to kind of help other businesses to re-innovate, empower them, enable them with technology where feasible and where possible, right? Co-create. I think each and every cluster that's present in the state today, right, presents an opportunity to co-create, which means partner. Today, if you have a product, see how you can partner with someone else to go further and forward. I mean, for a tech business, these are the right times for a business to really innovate a product. And that product can be applied very well within your industry, within a manufacturing industry. But I wouldn't have the domain knowledge of that. I know technology, but I do not know how a motor is manufactured, right? But if I have an entrepreneur with me who knows that, we possibly can co-create something along with them to be able to create, innovate something which cannot just help that specific business alone, but can be converted into an intellectual property, can be converted into a product or solution for larger good. And I see that's a huge opportunity that Gujarat presents versus any other state, and I'm proud of that.
From the SME and MSME side, what would you say is the biggest advantage and perhaps the biggest challenge of doing business in a place like Gujarat?
I would say like business to Gujaratiyoના બ્લડમાં છે. Then it may be Ahmedabad, Bombay, Surat or USA. There are very classic examples for the business people who were once upon a time SME, or I can say not even SME, very small business people. Company like if we talk about United Phosphorus, once upon a time they started with 4 lakhs, 4 crores, and today they are 350 crores. If we talk about the Bakeri, the owners of Bakeri came to Ahmedabad with as small as 15,000 rupees, and today we know where they are. They did their first deal in nearby St. Xavier's with 12.5 rupees per square yard and sold that property in 24 rupees per square yard. And we know what success they have got. If we talk about Cadilla, they started with 1 lakh, and we know where they are. If we talk about Reliance, they started with 2,38,000, today where they are. So this has been history, and there have been several people like this, but very few. So we need to generate those kind of people who can be the entrepreneurs. And of course, look at Ranu. She came from Delhi and she is a successful entrepreneur. So Gujarat is a land where anybody and everybody can do the business, and yes, there are challenges, but the spirit of the Gujaratis and the support which Gujarat government and the ecosystem has, I believe that people will survive. Thank you.
Maulik, Gujarat, I understand, was amongst the first to roll out a specific policy for startups. Could you talk about examples or what has really worked when it comes to this policy for startups that perhaps other states you think should replicate?
Well, there are several things happening for startup ecosystems. One, there is a clear objective that the government has is to create job creators, right? And not just job seekers alone. And therefore, all the policies, including policies which are initiated by Department of Industries and Mines, or Department of Education, and Department of Science and Technology, I mean, all work together, which is very unique, and come up with the policies which are really geared towards nurturing the startups. Okay. Of course, we have seen happening in silos, but over last few years, what is happening is all these initiatives are coming together under umbrellas like startup summits, vibrant startup summits. There used to be a vibrant Gujarat which used to happen every other year, but there was a parallel program which started vibrant startup summits, right? Objective was to kind of bring all these startups together, and still is, right, to be able to nurture, to be able to get connected with the industries, co-create. And I think that's the biggest unique factor which all our policies are really geared towards. We are likely to see one more IT policy and startup policy coming very soon in next few months, because the one which we had was still 2021, and a lot of inputs have been shared with the government by the startup ecosystems, by the startup entrepreneurs, to be able to really come up with more relevant initiatives. Focus areas: healthcare, health tech; education, edutech; sure. Agriculture, edutech; and financial services, right? And I must say that there is a huge initiative which is happening on the skilling, because startups alone, on their own, the entrepreneur without the right team or the right people wouldn't really be able to succeed. We need right people also to work along. So skilling is a huge initiative which the government is doing here locally within the state. We'll see some policies coming from that side as well, right? And maybe later I'll also share a few thoughts on skilling at some stage if I get an opportunity.
You and I were talking, offline about how you have, on one hand, you have businesses like Bharat Pay that are giving out high-end bikes to their engineers to attract them. For those of you on this panel, Ranu, maybe I could come to you first. The sector that you're in, very heavily dependent on the availability of people and skilled people, right? Because you're in the services industry. NASCOM as well, you require skilled people. SMEs and MSMEs, I know a lot of industries depending on a workforce which has perhaps during the first and the second wave maybe gone back to their hometowns. Some of them may have come back, some of them may not have. What is the situation as we speak? Maybe I could come to you first, Ranu. Give us a sense of, is it easy to find skilled people, the kind of people that you need for your industry in Gujarat? Are you undertaking any sort of training to ensure that if they're not skilled, you're giving them the skills they require? What can you tell us?
To start with, it is a chicken and egg situation for us. So whether to give training first, to initiate those programs, because everything requires funding, right? In my industry, if I talk about fashion industry, because again, we cater to a niche. So we do require skilled people. And when I come down to my consultancy, there again, we work around the services. So we need skilled people in terms of, to be able to deliver those services and to do it right. So, so the search started with coming down to, trying to hire skilled people from probably different cities. But then I think, and during the last couple of years with the pandemic, I realized it was best to hire people whom you can train, who want to become a part of your journey. Because what I realized in Ahmedabad or in Gujarat as a whole when I was hiring people, unlike my experience in Delhi, Bombay, Delhi experience is very different. Here when I was hiring people, so there is like, he talked about there's, I am bad in Gujarati, but there is that business in your blood. So that's the sense I got. So when you are hiring people, you feel the need of nurturing them as well, any which ways, because they all want to be, they all budding entrepreneurs. They have that, sense to do something of their own.
I'm going to take a quick break. Back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here at Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall. Bring you a slice of a panel that we did with an audience live in Ahmedabad area. Take a listen.
What's it like, on the software side? Also, given that now it is, especially for industries like yours, work from home, which means that the kind of skills that you need, etc., are becoming completely different. How are you managing? How's the industry managing?
Well, as far as software and tech industry is concerned, there are several opportunities in front of us, many, right? However, to deliver those, we need right people. And that's where the challenge is. And when everyone is working from home, it is all about trust, right? It's all about how you engage with people, how you collaborate with them, how do you really communicate with them, how do you empower them, how do you enable them. But then at the end of the day, it is trust, right? I mean, you can do work monitoring, you can ask for your daily status reports. The change that has happened is from activity to now we go for more result-oriented tasks, and that's what you talk, right? That's one thing. Second thing which we have figured that to be able to really engage the person now who is working from home, you're actually engaging with the family, right? Because you have a person who is working from home, working possibly from a small place, staying with a joint family. So the way you engage, your HR initiatives have completely changed. You are not just training the people alone who are working for you, but to an extent you are also getting their family in fold of training too, as and when needed. And that's a very important aspect. For us, it has become absolutely important to keep on continuously training our people, to create newer talent pool available at all the time, because there are several job opportunities as a result of which there is a churn as well. There is huge attrition too. I'm being very honest about it. Now, how do you tackle that? Right? So on the one hand, you have deliveries to be done to the clients. You have targets to be met for your products or services, right? But you need to have reliable workforce and trained workforce. So there is a continuous need of keeping our people getting trained time to time. It also works as retention policy to upskill them, to upgrade their skilling and so on. So that's the biggest change. And of course, not that it wasn't important earlier, but it stresses much more now for the training initiatives, for the retention policies. Now, training on what you're doing now is one thing which is absolutely needed, but then there are futuristic and emerging technologies too. Because that's what the non-tech industry is demanding, digitalization. So we're talking about cloud, we're talking about AI is little away, I would not say that away, but it is approaching. How do you get data ready? I mean, that's where I would like to suggest few things for my friends from non-tech industries that, you may be running a smaller industry or a bigger industry, but are you data ready? Please keep that in mind. You have to be data ready. Even if it's in a simple Excel format, that's okay. But are you data ready? That's one. And if you're having data getting generated within different functions of your organization, are you really combining that? Are you bringing that together, or they're sitting in different silos? If not, you're losing advantage of being data ready. And if you're data ready, are you now using that data to draw at least some intelligence out of it, right? That who is your most trusted employee? What's your return on investment? Some key performance indicators that you can really draw from your data is very important. And that's where I stress that digital literacy for us as business leaders, I'm not just talking about our workforce here. Digital literacy for us as business leaders, as SME entrepreneurs, is very important. Unless we know that, we'll not be able to drive that change. And that's the key point which we also in tech industries also have learned, that without us understanding how and what we can drive, it is not possible. So for us, first is to train ourselves, reskill ourselves, upgrade ourselves, and that's very important. We at NASSCOM have this initiative, and there is a portal which was launched by our Prime Minister. Okay, it is called, you may note down, it is called futureskillsprime.in, futureskillsprime.in. This portal is available today for you to get reskilled, upskill yourself in any digital technology. Forget digital technology or diving deep. You can actually make yourself digitally more literate. You can understand how to create sense out of some data if you have. And there are basic courses which are available and available for free. Idea is to democratize digital technologies and spread digital literacy as much as possible. So we at NASSCOM and at Sector Skills, this 75th Independence Day, right? It's our strong resolve to continue spreading digital literacy and make our nation more stronger that when digitally ready and becoming a digital powerhouse. But I think it has to start from us, very honestly. We can't expect our people to change if we don't. So for us as entrepreneurs, for us as small or medium business owners, it's important for us to really acquire those capabilities. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I think we'll have to take closing comments. We've run out of time on this panel. Brief 10 seconds. If the three of you, if I could request for you to talk about what have been your biggest learnings as entrepreneurs, as business owners during this pandemic, and based on that, what advice would you want to give the audience of entrepreneurs who's here today? Maybe I could come to you first.
Yeah, I would like to say that we need to produce the educational leaders, because India doesn't ranks in 1 to 150th top universities of the world. And what we follow and we advise all of you to follow is, in your business, be ethical, be honest, give quality product, and take care of customer satisfaction. Thank you.
So like I talked about collaborations, so I feel for me, in terms of our industry or small businesses overall, coexistence is one important learning for me, and which I've seen around also, people who are not doing it, businesses who are not doing it, now are doing it. Then for any service industry, there's a saying that goes, customer is your God. So to take it literally now, I think we all swear by it now, because the importance is, this 1 year has told us how important it is to give that, that weightage to the service. And again, coming down to the crisis management, so adapting. That is again because the businesses which couldn't adapt or evolve around it won't survive. It's very harsh to say it, but it's the truth.
Maulik, I'm going to give you the last word.
They have said it all as such, but if I add my 2 cents, my experience, number 1 is partnership. Stronger partnership with your vendors, with your customers. The more deeper you are into your partnerships, you can survive through tough times as well. And that is one thing which has to come my own learning and understanding. It acts as a mesh, for a net for you, and people do understand if you have good relationships and partnerships. So I think, and you cannot do everything yourself. What we talk, you have to have stronger partnership with your suppliers, with your vendors, with your clients as well. So that's very important. Second thing is, Ranu mentioned about it. It's about unknown times, right? And how do you really come that to understanding? I think we have to understand one thing, that wealth is not generated these days by perfecting the known things, but by seizing the unknown. That's the key. And I'll repeat that, not by perfecting the known things, but by seizing the unknown. And how do you seize the unknown? What do you do? I mean, that's where you have to be constantly be agile, you have to be aware that you have to change yourself and adapt, right? Which means learning. And I was talking about that so passionately before, because I strongly believe so. Unless we really do that, we will not be able to seize the unknown.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. It's been a very engaging conversation with our panelists. A warm round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being an attentive audience.
That's all we could manage to pack into this panel. If you want to know where we're headed to next, well, all of that information is on our website. For tonight's wrap. Thanks for watching.